Can you guys see that?
Yep.
All right. All right. Is Rick on?
I am here.
All right. So, Rick, I think we have 3 pictures here for you.
Okay. This is a small Norfolk pine item that
That's the way it looked.
I've been working on for a while. That's just basically what it is, just a small closed form. One thing may be a little different that I found after working with some Norfolk pine. Can you see this?
People probably have a hard time seeing it unless I can't see it.
Oh, okay. Anyway, I've always had trouble with the pith and the pieces of Norfolk pine that had the limbs on them. And I basically just inset a piece of Paduke into the bottom of it to support it. So I didn't have that issue with this particular one. It's that is a closed form with olive wood finished with lacquer.
Can you please go back? What did you mean you put a piece of Paduke in there? Where did you put it?
I put it in the center of the bottom.
The bottom of what?
Of the Norfolk pine.
You mean
where the pith would be?
Where the pith would be, okay.
Okay, so not these little branches, that 1, 2, 3, the reddish pieces. That's the true tree.
Those are the actual branches in the Norfolk pine. My goal with that particular piece was to try to get something other than just a round branch, as happens when you do a bowl, and that's why I ended up doing a closed form.
And the branches don't crack in the pith of the branch?
There were some small places there. I generally patched them in with some black CA glue, sanded it back and finished.
And the color is original of the branches?
Excuse me?
The color, the reddishness is the original color?
Yeah, I did not color the branches.
Oh.
Stefan, if you do a search for Norfolk Island pine, you'll see a lot of examples.
I will.
Yeah, it's a really kind of neat wood, but.
How was that one finished?
That one's actually finished. I ended up putting sanding sealer on it just because in my experience, the stuff is so porous, and then put True Oil on it.
All right. Moving on, got this one. Where did you get that olive wood?
I was asked to do some bowls for a church in Georgia where we recently relocated from, and ended up buying some off of eBay to try to accommodate them, and this was a piece I had left over.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks. All right. This one's mine. I was asked by the religious education director at our church to create 20 chalices to be used by their RE teachers since everything's going virtual, they wanted each teacher to have one of these, kind of used as a centering, focusing ritual to start up their classes. So I just went into the production mode on these, and I only had 2 weeks to make them, and actually got them done in time. This is a kind of a close-up of them. They're about 6 inches in diameter, about 3 inches high, and they have a glass insert in there, so they either can be used with a T-light votive or the LED votive, but finished with seal cell and then just buffed out. And you know, it's interesting when you have to do multiples of anything to just get into take some time to think about the process. And these probably had maybe an hour and a half total into them, not including just roughing out the initial blank, but or rounding out, you know, on the bandsaw. But you know, once I got to that point, so you know, to make the 20 of them, I actually used 24 blanks. I had a couple that I what I find is I lose concentration sometimes and I drilled the wrong size hole in one of them. I did have one split on me that just had a split in the wood that I didn't see. So started out with 24, ended up with 21, and they were done in time.
Makes me
Good
feel
job.
good that somebody else loses concentration and messes things up too.
Yeah, well, it's particularly bad when when I'm making production type stuff, when I'm doing pepper mill runs, and I hate it because I should know better, but
Doesn't help.
it doesn't help. I just I don't tend to lose focus on like the important things like safety, and but I just pick up the wrong drill bit sometimes, or just those types of things, or I forget to do one of the steps, and so anyway, but
Well, you made my day.
well, good. I thought the $50 would have made your day, Jim.
Oh, well, that helped, but I've ruined more than $50 worth doing this.
Steve, how did you buff that? Was that Beal or hand buff or what?
I use Beal cell. I use Seal Cell on them. The base has a recess in there for a dovetail chuck which I just left in the bottom. And so after I did the seal cell on them, I put them back on the lathe. I took a white Scotch-Brite pad, which is the finest one, and just evened out the seal cell, and then I just used Carnauba. So I didn't use any of the abrasives with the Beal system. I just put a coat of wax on them.
Did you make each one individually, or did you do similar operations on all of them?
They're all pretty similar. There's not a lot of variation. The bases are all a little bit different. Where I put the ratio between the top and the bottom is essentially the same. The bases are all the identical diameter because I measured that out, and you need to make it stable enough so they don't tip over, and you need to have enough room to cut for the mortise. So,
No, what I meant was, like, did you drill all the blanks first and then like do part of the shaping for each one, or did you work on each one from beginning to end?
No, so first I rounded all the blanks. So I had 20 round blanks, and then I drilled the hole for the mortise in all of them, and then from that point I turned once I put them on the lathe, I finished them.
It's a huge amount of work. It's impressive.
Yeah.
And where did you get the idea for the shape?
I've done these for years for them, so this is a shape that I've done. I've made them typically for graduating high school seniors. It's a shape that I've done for them for a number of years. So
It's very harmonious. It looks nice. Where did you get the original idea for the shape?
I don't know. I mean, the church uses a flaming chalice as a symbol, and there's a lot of different ways you can do it. It's just something I came up with. It's just that I did it one year, and for the high school seniors, there had been there was a potter that had been making them for a while, and I used some of what she was doing, and then I just developed the shape, that refined it myself to accommodate the wood turning.
Very nice.
All right.
Nice.
And one other thing, I just want to tell you that photograph is based on the insight I got from John Vaith and the equipment that he's going to talk about next month.
Good.
So it
It looks nice too.
really made a big difference in my photography.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it made a big difference. I hope it made a big improvement. I guess you guys have to be the judge of that. So, all right, Bob.
All right, this was just kind of an inspiration. I was looking at an old Ray Keys book, and I just kind of came across a form that I liked a lot. And I was going through some wood out in the shop, and I found a little piece of tamarind that was nicely figured, and I thought it might work out as a small box, and this is the result. And it was just kind of an exercise in keeping it simple, as he used to say. So it's just turned, and I used I sealed it with a seal coat and then buffed it out with the Beal buff system.
Was that punky, or was it?
No,
Oh,
no.
that's amazing. You got to that. It got that spalted without getting porous.
No, that's why I kind of caught my eye, because actually it's a little bit darker than it shows in that photograph, because the box that I photographed it in has got these fluorescent lights that I have a hard time getting dimmed down, so it puts quite a bit of light on it. It's, well,
Can you zoom in a bit, Steve?
What?
Can you zoom in a little so we can see the grain? Yeah.
Great patterns, great spalting.
yeah, it was really pretty. It turned
Mhm.
Oh, wood.
really nicely.
It's nice, you got a nice tight fitting lid on there too. It's
Yeah, that lid.
small.
My wife thought she didn't even realize it was a lid until I showed her
Yeah,
it come off.
yeah,
Well,
very
Well,
nice.
that's Ray Key's big trick, is that he uses the height to fit the lid so that you don't see the line.
Yeah.
So the cut isn't so much this way where you would see the gap because of the change in the grain, but using the long grain, you basically can hide the lid fit through the curvature or changing the direction.
Yeah, it's
So did you just part the lid off and then cut the reset and then, just turn it down to fit it back in there?
yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, actually, I fit the lid in before I turned the top of the lid. Once I got the lid fit, I went back and turned it with the lid on.
Okay.
But that lid would actually, tell me if I'm wrong, but if the Ray Key method, the lid you see wasn't in the bowl. It was actually a half an inch higher up the tree, or just a little bit higher.
That is correct, yes.
Wow.
Huh. That's
I guess because
Again.
the grain runs along the length, it matches so evenly.
Yeah,
Now that was where it became a lot easier to match
Yeah.
the lid. I was really kind of happy the way it fit together there and could carry that design of the wood, the spalting across into the top of the box.
It's really
Astounding.
striking too because it has that complex grain pattern.
Yeah.
So it looks really, really cool.
yeah, it would have been really obvious if it didn't match with all that going on there.
Yeah.
What are the dimensions?
That is it's almost 3 inches wide by about 3.5 high.
And Bob wrote that, but for some reason, when I pasted in the dimensions, it got translated into a heart emoticon.
I saw that and I go, what are you doing?
Because we love you, Bob. Come on.
Well, greater than sign in a
I actually
three.
went back and looked at my email to see what I had done.
Now, greater than sign in a 3 makes a heart.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was me. Sorry.
Can you teach me a little about tamarind wood? Where did you get it? What's special about it? How does it turn?
I don't know much about it. It was I think it was a 4x4 by 12 piece that I picked up maybe at Klingspor one time I think it was at Klingspor that I picked it up. I've had it in my shop for several years.
Yeah, there's one of the wood vendors that goes to the symposium and also was at the national symposium too, but it has racks of those 3x3x12s or 4x4x12s of tamarind. I don't know where it comes from, but it spalts very nicely. I have several blanks of that around the shop, but yeah, I guess Klingspor has had it, but it's very, very common at the symposiums.
Yeah.
The characteristic I recall every time I see it is it looks like spalted maple, but it looks like punky spalt. But when you get in close, you realize that it looks punky, but it isn't.
It isn't. No, it was very stable.
It's
from
from
Tanzania.
it's from Africa, and it's an oddball in that this is the only tree in that genus.
Huh.
And it's only collected if the tree falls naturally. They're not allowed to harvest it. And most of the time when you get the wood, it's got two tenons, square tenons on the end, because they ship it technically as a furniture piece, not as raw wood.
You're
that why
absolutely
that
right. 'Cause
is?
the piece I had two square tins on the end of it.
Yeah, all the pieces I have that too. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Very interesting.
interesting.
Can I ask Raymond, how do you know that? That's such unusual detail.
My work people used to call me Cliff Clavin. I was just curious about it because I made a peppermill out of that as a wedding gift, and the lady
Horrible. Thank you.
is
Yeah, so Julia, Michael Field.
Whoever's got the background
I
noise.
got it. I muted.
Okay. So Ray, you need to unmute.
okay, there we go. So I made it as a wedding gift for the daughter of one of our friends, and she was speaking in Tanzania on vultures, of all things. She's a curator at the North Carolina Zoo. And so I was trying to find a gift that would tie into one of her things that she does. So that I did a little more research than normal.
Interesting.
All right, Bob.
All right.
Been burning.
This was just, I had a piece of crepe myrtle that Gene gave me a couple years ago, and I had turned it into a little pot, and it's been sitting around, and I keep trying to figure out what to do with it. And I was going to play with color and whatnot on it. And the other day I just decided I'll just do some wood burning. So that's how this came to be. Just different shapes and squiggles and whatnot. But as I got to looking at it, I thought maybe it would be nice to have it colored. So I'm kind of toying now with the next stage of this as to whether or not I'll put some acrylic color washes on it or something. I don't know. Open to suggestions here.
I'd ask Ted's sister.
Yes. Maybe I ought to just send it to her.
Yeah.
I
One-
would
one thing-
suggest that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ted. You go ahead, please.
No, I was just gonna say, you have a rim around the top ring, where the lines come up and meet. And
Yeah.
putting one on the bottom, I think would be a good idea as well.
Yeah. If you're going to do painting on it, yeah, I would agree with that.
Definitely, yeah, that'd be a great addition.
I think this looks so nice the way it is. I wouldn't try to mess with it. I would turn a second one and use the second one for color, but not try it on this one.
Well, I actually have another little pot that I did too, and I'm going to do just that, Stephen. Good idea.
One other thing I'll point out, Bob, is in some of your squares, like in the middle there, it's the wood around where you burned is browned quite a bit.
Yeah.
You got your iron just a little bit too hot there.
And I also thought it was probably the wrong choice of tips because that typically does burn pretty hot. It's a coil.
Yeah.
The rest of them were just done freehand with like a knife type burner.
Yeah.
So it was probably not the right choice. It was just kind of playing around with different shapes and sizes.
Would a
Yeah.
light touch of
Do you have an
fine
adjustable
help out?
burner, or is it just?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, just
I don't
try
know.
turning it way down and then just turn it up a little bit as it, till you get progresses to where you want it.
I tell you what, I actually like that it's brownish colored in some areas. So I actually would not turn it down, except
Yeah.
in some areas it bleeds into the next square. So there
Yeah.
I would be more careful.
Yeah,
But
that's my
otherwise, I
problem
like the
with it, is you lose
brownishness.
some of the design with it when that happens. I agree. I kind of like that brownish too in a way. In that one square, you can see the details of everything, but the one above it, you can't.
Mhm.
Right.
Because it's burned from one to the next, and you can't see the design any longer.
It's really well done.
That design is for, that's to make snake skin.
I like it though. I like it. I like the piece a lot.
I'm not sure if this works or not, but I had a couple kaleidoscopes engraved, and they burned that in. And I found that if you give it one coat of lacquer, it'll burn through it and you don't get it, hardly any of that.
Oh,
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I don't know. The one time I tried burning a piece that had lacquer on it, the lacquer wanted to melt and run, but I had quite a few coats, not one.
I was gonna say, you got a lot of lacquer on there.
yeah.
No, just give it a coat of lacquer. Yeah,
I'm not as-
and
I'm not as
after that,
quick
you
as-
can clean it up and give it another coat if you like it. But
Yeah, Bob.
one coat of lacquer kind of seals.
I put a
Well,
lot
experiment.
on.
I've got that other pot. I'll just, maybe I'll divide it into sections and just try some different things and see what happens.
Yeah, the
Uh,
other thing, Bob, you can do is just take real fine sandpaper and you can just lightly brush it across the areas where you're not seeing enough detail on it to clean off those burnt spots. I've done that before.
That's
You know,
exactly what I was suggesting.
I did that with a nylon bristle brush, and I've got a brass brush, and I was going to try it with the brass brush. I probably should have done it with that brass brush first.
Yeah, that'll peel out the stuff down inside your grooves, you know, where you've burned in, where the
Yeah.
sandpaper just goes across the surface. And so it brings that detail back out again.
Okay.
Well, doesn't alcohol or something do that too? You brush it on?
Sorry?
It's somewhere I heard that, I think it's alcohol. You brush it on there with a toothbrush or something, takes that off. Molly Winton or somebody does that. I think it's alcohol or lacquer thinner. No, alcohol.
I don't know. I've never tried that.
All
Bob, how do
right,
you,
Bob, so we like the idea of doing an experiment and with your controlled, some of your controls here that were, and then you can report back.
Yeah.
Be
Yep.
interesting to see what the results are here. So
Bob, how do you keep this piece in place when you work on it?
I have a chair and I sit with it in my hand and I just hold it.
Okay.
The lacquer that was used in that suggestion, was that water-based or oil-based, or does it matter after it hardens?
I don't use water-based anything on wood.
I don't either.
all right, let's move on. All right, Luke.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
These are some Christmas projects I did with stocking stuffers, and at a suggestion from one of my daughters, can you make me something like this? And I scaled the picture that she sent me and came up with a 2-to-1 ratio. Basically, whatever size the wood slats cut out to be, my blanks, typically use anything from a 3/8 to a 1/8 thick blank, but 3 inches across the bottom turns into 6 inches tall. So finish those up and cut off the points and then glue them on as the other side. And then over to the left is some white snowmen. These, I don't know what kind of wood it was, but it was off of a Chinese pallet. And I just lucked out chucking it up and turning in some snowmen, and they turned out really white like that.
What's this the darker wood in the back there?
That's walnut.
Walnut.
And you got to the far right and over to the left, the back left 3 are red or oak, and the one in the center is pine, and the 2 in the front are pine also. You'll notice the second one and the first one from the back left are the 1/8 inch thick wood, and most of the others are about 3/8. And some of them I finish with water locks and a little bit of Johnson's paste wax. And I had a batch of them made up that were unfinished, and my granddaughter wanted to color them. She had her acrylic paint out, and I'm sorry I don't have a picture of that, but they make great gifts for grandkids to color and make Christmas memories.
Very good.
I like the 2-to-1 ratio too. That's perfect ratio.
I mean, yeah, whatever's in your scrap pile, you start slatting it up, and then okay, this one turned out to be 2 inches or 3, and then you just double it for the 2 to 1. This picture here is a fall decoration for our dining room table. The top version of this is the before, and the bottom is the after version. Several different bowls here. The top left is a 15 segment hickory. Below that is walnut and curly maple. The one in the center is cedar, along with the 2 end grain candlesticks, and on the right is a pine wing bowl. And like I say, when I bring these into the house, usually the wife will pick out the ones that she really loves and say, this one is mine. So all these turned into her fall decorations, and each season it'll be something different for when Christmas comes.
Beautiful combination.
That's nicely done by both of you there.
The pattern in the bottom of the cedar, that's fabulous. How do you do that?
That was more or less. I had some extra pieces left, and in bowl turning, I'd gotten tired of just a plain bottom, so I cut up some. I believe they were about 3/8 by a 1/2 inch, by about 1 inch, and stood them up and just started with that herringbone pattern and started gluing them together. And
Steve, can you zoom in on that a little?
say again?
I was asking Steve to zoom in on that pattern. There we go.
How in the world do you hold them to glue them?
Well, it's a trade secret, but a lot of luck had it.
Okay.
Basically, I just glued the first 2, pressed them together real good, and then just made a strip of them by pressing them together. And each strip is just hand pressed together. And I was amazed, if you do it good and slow enough, and your pieces are accurately cut, I did not have any voids in it.
You must live right.
I know, I was lucky.
Oh, wait. There's no way I do that.
How do you match the bottom of that pattern with the rest of the bowl without any gaps in any of the other pieces?
Basically, it was like the dimensions of the bottom was something like a 6 by 6 by 1 inch square. And when I glued up the rings to the bowl, I took the bottom and cut it out on the bandsaw into a circle and flattened it on the belt sander, and it just glued straight up with the bottom ring of the bowl.
I know how to do that now. You could glue up a long L-shaped strip and cut it up 3 3/4 of an inch long and just glue all the L's together and they would lock.
Yeah.
Next year's jig, Jim. We can all. I can feel those wheels turning from here.
Well, wait a minute. I get a creator cut.
I definitely,
That's the whole thing.
I definitely feel the luck part of it, but sometimes it's good luck, sometimes it's bad luck. I mean,
I was going to try it. Yeah, I've made several other patterns. I don't have any pictures or examples of them, but taking alternating strips of maple and walnut, just make a strip bottom bowl, different things like that. I've tried a couple of pie shapes. You cut them in a pie shape and it looks like a spiral almost bottom. They didn't turn out real good. The trouble I had was in the very center of the pie shapes, gluing all them together. It wouldn't glue up real pretty. So I ended up taking a Forstner bit and drilling out the center and putting a plug in it.
Right. Well, nicely done. We look forward to seeing more of your work.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Gene.
Oh, yes. That is a piece of, I don't know what kind of burl. And I'd like to make the rim thinner, but it's so rough and such a hard wood, I'm afraid I'd just break a big chunk off. The grain pattern in it is very pronounced and alternating hard spots and relatively soft spots. And the tool just chatters away while it's cutting.
So, Gene, a couple of things I've done to counteract that, and I see you got on this far area up here. Looks like you started in and got a little bit of a ledge there you need to take out. I don't know whether you've gotten past that already, but sometimes I'll take a thin parting tool and use that but I leave the outside thick and I work on the inside to get it the way I want it. And then I bring the outside. It's much easier to take this on the outside because you can come up from the bottom with a shear cut and use that to thin out the wall on the top where you're not trying to punch into that raw edge there. So a lot of times I'll just leave the outside kind of rough and then work on the inside, get it where I want it while you still have all that mass there, and then thin it out on the outside rather than trying to thin it out on the inside. It's really hard to make that penetrating cut with that kind of edge.
Yeah, good idea. Thank you.
You also find that maybe putting some CA on that edge will tend to stabilize a little bit if it looks like there is some bark there that may be wanting to come off there, so maybe that helps sometimes too. But that should be a pretty bowl when it's done.
I'm just taking it slow and easy.
Mhm.
I would move your tool rest back before you start your lathe.
It's a photo trick.
Yeah.
It looks worse than it really is.
It only hurts on the first go round. Then it's fine.
That might be a good opportunity to put a glove on your left hand also.
Oh, yeah.
And a really, really good face shield.
Yeah.
This is just 3 tea light holders that I've made. I've made several with the same basic shape and dimensions. Each one's a different wood. The one on the right is Aromatic Cedar. The one in the center is, oh my word, I forgot now. A dogwood. One in the center is dogwood. And the one on the left is just a piece of scrap wood that is laying around.
Yeah, my only
I'll offer a quick comment. With Aromatic Cedar, use lacquer and shellac. I have dealt with that stuff that was so full of tannins that polyurethane would not dry on it.
Oh, wow.
The only other comment I have, Gene, is that the one on the left, having made a lot of tea lights, I'd worry about that one being a little top heavy. Yeah, just being a little top heavy, and if it gets knocked, it looks like it would tip because of the small base on it. So just word of the.
Well, I've kind of played around with that because I had the same thought, but it's really pretty stable.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah, sometimes the photographs are deceptive if they're because they're oblique, but they may just, I always keep that in mind as I make them. So, all right. Well, thank you, Jeffrey. Mr. Danneman.
All right, I'm unmuted. I watched Norm sell an awful lot of those one-handed pepper mills. Decided to try it. Went with the stainless so I could do salt and pepper. And to be able to tell one from the other, I just went with a white wood and a dark wood. So you're looking at walnut and bird's eye. Thinking about it, I finished them with one heavy coat of polyurethane sealer, just basically lathered it on. That way, when you do get tomato paste and the like on them, it washes right off. The only issue I've had is those came from Woodcraft, the inserts, and they're a little tough to plunge, particularly for an older gentleman like myself with a touch of arthritis in the thumbs. I can't use them.
Maybe it'll loosen up with use.
Yeah, you could pull the spring out and put some compression on it, lighten it up a little.
Excellent idea. I'll give that a shot.
Wood mallet,
Pardon me?
or take a couple turns off the spring.
Yeah.
I like the wood choice, but I'm gonna give you a little criticism here because I have done a few of these. So I like to vary the design, not the wood. And this is a classic example why. Those two look kind of nice together, but the lines are similar but don't match, and that annoys me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, takers are different.
Yeah. As long as you don't put them butt up against one another, it don't show too bad.
But that's what people will do, right? It's a salt and pepper shade. They're going to sit together on the edge of the table. That's why I always vary the design so that I never have, they look sort of the same, same theme, but I change the design so I never have that problem.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure.
The other thing is, how do they fit in your hand? They almost look a little too fat. But
Well,
it's hard to tell from the picture.
That's the photo, yeah.
I can palm a basketball. Like they say, big hands, big feet, big mouth.
You can
Were
start
they
there.
1.5
What the diameter is.
Inch and a quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that big. It's just the photo makes them look fatter.
Yeah.
TV makes you gains 10 pounds. I know.
I made several of those too. They're really good. I just don't like the way they grind. It's doesn't seem to be really good, but they are really pretty.
Yeah, I can't palm a basketball, I confess. But what really gets me is now that they've raised the goal to 20 feet, I just cannot dunk anymore.
I have that same problem and have had it for years. It hit me when they raised the goal to 11 feet.
Okay, we've gone from fishing to basketball. This
All
is
right. All right. Moving on.
Moving on.
Joe.
This is just a very simple, basic bowl. It's made from Steve's favorite wood, butternut. And I say that jokingly. So what's interesting about this is wood I harvested myself and dried it. And if you look at the lower picture on the bottom and the right side of the bowl, that discoloration occurred during the seasoning process. And I'm not quite sure exactly what that is. It's hard to tell from the photograph, but you can also see it on the inside of the bowl, on the bottom inside of the bowl. So
Was it sitting on the ground for a while?
no, the tree was felled in January, and I think it was cut maybe 2 weeks later into logs.
Yeah.
And I split all the logs, and I took one of them and I just turned it while it was wet. And I left the side, so the bowl is about 10 inches wide. So I rough turned it, leaving it about an inch thick. And then I filled it with shavings and put it in a paper bag. And I weighed it before filling it with shavings. And I checked it in a few weeks, and it had formed a crack on the top, which you can't see in this picture. I think it's on the other side.
I didn't realize butternut had medulla rays like oak.
Yeah, it actually looks pretty cool. When it was wet, that part was actually the heartwood was redder than it is now, but it's I think in person it's a little bit redder than the photo shows. But anyway, so then I took the bowl out and I sealed the end grain with Osmocote, both on the inside and the outside. And I just let it sit till about a month ago. So roughly 7-8 months. And I would weigh it every month or so until it kind of stabilized to just a few grams. And I'm not exactly sure when that discoloration occurred, but I think it was kind of early on in the process. So is that normal? Is that common?
Well, it's a lot of times just it either gets kind of a moldy or fungus in it on an outside edge, and it's not consistent. That's why I asked why I was sitting on the ground. Sometimes I've had bowls that I used to put on my concrete floor in my garage that would get dark spots like that, where they just from where they were making contact with something else, another piece of wood, if I had them stacked or inside one another, and so you just it looks like something just started growing in there. But
yeah, it's interesting. Some of the other, I cut up the rest of the wood. I had just sealed the edges with Osmocote, and I had it kind of drying outside, but it was protected from the elements. And I recently cut them up into bowl blanks. And there's a few of them that have this really cool spalting pattern on them, but
right,
it's kind of inconsistent. Some do and some don't.
right, yeah, it's hard to know. We need a wood scientist in our.
We do.
And what is the comment, Stephen, that this is your quote favorite wood, which sounds like it's not? What's the background of that?
I just heard Steve say one time that he hated butternut. So
And
Just,
why is that, Stephen?
Because it moves. It just it's the only. It's to me it's a lot like oak as well. That that you just get so much movement on it that it's hard to. The few times I've tried to turn it, it's just cracked or it's just I haven't had success with it. So I tend to stay away from things that aggravate me.
Usually carvers use it, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's actually good. Like I said, I'm not sure I've seen butternut with those rays in it like that.
Yeah, it looks like oak.
Yeah, that's a very interesting effect. And yours didn't crack, so.
no, not while I was turning it, but while it was seasoning early on, there's a little crack on the top that's maybe 3/4 of an inch.
Right.
The rest of it is okay. And it's strange because as it was drying, after it had been rough turned, it really distorted a lot. And I thought any day now it's just gonna split apart, but it held together.
Nicely done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ted.
Yeah, so I just put this in here to show, example of things that always go wrong. Speaking of cracking oak, this is a piece that cracked, and I've learned a lot since I actually turned this piece, but I left a base too thick on it, and which I think added to helping it crack. So it was, so I thought, what am I going to do with this thing? Throw it out or what? I'm certainly not going to fill that crack. And so based on I've forgotten the fellow's name that came and did a demo about a year or so ago now.
Is it Dennis Haster?
Dennis Belcher.
Dennis Belcher.
Belcher, yeah, that's it. Anyway, so I thought, hey, that'd be kind of cool to put a lace up it, a leather lace on it. So I got some leather lacing, and it was a struggle getting it laced in there because, as you know, you can't put your hand through it. It's not like a bowl or something, you know. So I used a piece of what is it called? Flower arrangement wire. It's real fine wire, and I just poked a hole with an awl through the end of the lace, and I fished that wire through there. It was a little bit of a challenge getting it to work because the wire wasn't quite stiff enough in many cases. But anyways, I finally got it all through there and tied it off. So it came out pretty nice, I
I
thought.
love that, Ted. There's one thing that if it were my piece, I would suggest trying to get a metallic paint inside the crack.
Yeah.
It would pop against that black. I think it looks really great as is, but that would just be that one little scream that I think
Yeah.
would.
You mean like a silver color, you mean, or something?
Silver or gold, right? Just
Uh-huh.
something with a little shine to it that you could
Yeah.
just paint the inner crack portion. So
Yeah.
it's almost like you're hiding it with the black paint,
Yeah.
but the lace pops it up again.
Yeah.
In
Okay.
my mind's eye, pictured, instead of the lacing up the side, a zipper, and on the top surface, a belt buckle.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
You can't show a zipper because Dennis Belcher didn't show that. Oh no! He showed the whole thing and didn't show that. Oh no!
You
So-
know,
I'm
I
not going to
think
withdraw my suggestion.
what I see is a excellent moccasin for a peg leg pirate. But I do like the metallic on the inside. I think that would make it a real fashion statement.
Yeah.
So if
Nice
anybody has access to, that knows a physician, like my father-in-law was a emergency room physician, and when he retired, I inherited a whole set of hemostats. And for those who don't know, hemostats are like this squeezy thing that has a little ratchet holder on it, but they come in various lengths, and they're straight and they're curved, and some of them were long enough to reach into the bottom of this. I mean, you could I have some that are up, upwards of 12 inches long, and they're great for doing when you have to reach into something like this and grab something and hold it, because they clamp together, and the curve on the end on the curved ones would work great for grabbing that and sticking it into the next one. So anybody runs across them, you don't use them often, but every once in a while when you need one, they're great tools to have.
That's the damnedest tool I ever used in my hand. Every time I get it into something and it locks and I can't.
I've got some, but I don't have any that long.
I've collected them from I've collected mine from doctor's visits at the hospital, and so I got a small collection. But when I'm making earrings, the findings are so tiny I can't do anything else. But that little clamp will hold it like a rock while bending, twisting, or whatever else. So they are really great tools.
So I'm a physician, and I have a few with some blood on it if anyone needs any more.
Well, they sterilize them and throw them away anyway. So
another thing, I got galvanized wire. It's pretty cheap from Amazon, 22 gauge up to about 10 gauge. And depending on the size of the hole, you really can form it to the shape you want and pull it through. That floral wire, like you say, it's fairly springy. It's hard to get it in, but the gauges on the galvanized wires are good.
Yeah, it needed to be a little stronger, a little springier than it was. Too soft, I ended up using like a little spring hook to pull it back into the next hole all the time, and it was a challenge.
Did you lace leather directly?
Sorry?
Did you lace that leather directly? You didn't put a lead string in first?
No, I used a piece of wire that I poked through the end of the lace, and then I ran that wire through from hole to hole.
and it pulls the lace in afterwards.
Yeah. Pulled the lace through. Yep.
Norm, did you indicate you would only paint the inside of the crack or the inside of the
Yeah.
whole bowl?
No, I just do the inside of the crack.
Yes, I think that's a nice idea. And the gold would probably be better than silver just to match the yellow of the leather string.
Or
Yeah.
a copper.
Try gilding it.
Oh, copper. Mhm.
Yeah, so this is just a cord set of bowls, and when I cord the middle bowl, what happened is when I got down to the bottom of the bowl, it got a little bit. It was thin, but it wasn't that bad. It was actually fairly close, but it got a catch or something, and it snapped it off. And when it snapped it off, it put a hole in the bottom of the middle bowl. So it's like, okay, so that ruins that whole set, when that happened. And anyways, I threw them in a paper bag and put it on the shelf, and I pulled it out about a month ago, I guess, or a few weeks ago, and said, what am I going to do with these things? Either going to do something with it or throw it out. So I thought, well, I'll try putting another different piece of wood on the bottom, a contrasting wood. So I cut a piece of crepe myrtle and put it on there, and I liked it so much I took the bottom off the big bowl and did the same thing. There was nothing wrong with the big one, but I took it off there anyways, and I didn't want to go through the trouble for the little one, but maybe I should to match it up.
Okay, now I'm really perturbed with myself for throwing mine out because that looks really good.
Yeah, I really liked it. The contrast really made it quite nice. Between the two, I think if I'd have tried to put anything else in there, like closing matching colors or something, it would look probably horrible. But with the contrasting wood, it came out pretty nice.
Would you mind going back one slide? So they are centered, are they? It just looks like they're off center.
Yeah, they're centered. The bowl's just leaning, and the camera lens and stuff is evident. Yeah, it's centered.
Really nicely done.
Thank you.
I have to compliment you because every wood turner that's ever turned a bowl naturally sometimes goes through it. And they all say, oh, I'm going to plug this and nobody will ever know it. And everybody that's ever picked up a bowl and sees a plug in the bottom knows exactly what happened. Nice job, anyway.
I just have a whole
Jim,
lot
are you
of
saying-
funnels.
So you saying every turner? That's a pretty, okay, never mind.
Go on, you have to admit it.
But I do suggest doing the small bowl too, because now it looks like
Yeah.
two bowls and they're
Yep.
silly offspring or something. So
Yep. I know.
definitely
I agree.
beautiful.
And I really like the
Contrast.
shape and the design. That's really nice shapes you've got there.
Great
And
shape
the
and
fact that
contrast.
the fact that the upper lips look exactly alike on every one of them really looks good. I like.
Thank you.
So I think everybody is telling you should have screwed up the small one too.
Yeah. I think everyone's telling me that I ought to do this to all my bowls, whether I screwed them up or not.
All right, Norm.
This is my new favorite piece. This is an 18-inch piece of bubinga that was actually recovered from a fire from a former member's shop. It's a beautiful wood. The rings were done. This is one of the rare times where I actually started with a plan, marked it out, and followed through the plan and didn't have to alter the design halfway through. I was so happy about that. So each of those beads shrink down and follow the depth of the rim. It's a 10 mil, 8 mil, 6 mil bead all the way down. Each one is a little lower than the rest, but they are all, at least the outer one is proud of the rim, just a bit. Tricky to do with this dry wood because the beading tools I was using, I picked up, Stefan had some questions about these. I picked up these a long time ago. These are just Benjamin Best beading tools. They're just scrapers. You see the edge of them. They did not work on this wood because it was just too much tear out. it's a slightly open grain, and it was very dry. But they helped me mark out, get my side started, and as I proceeded with, I had a simple pyramid point tool and a small bowl gouge. I was hand shaping the beads, but it let me stop and check to see if, not fool myself into thinking the bead was more of an oval or the shape was off. So they became more of a shape testing tools than turning tools toward the end. So they were handy, but just a really fun piece to turn. A lot of shaving the floor, and I did run video while I was doing it. So at some point I'll put it together, and you can watch the struggles I went through, because this took me hours.
Beautiful piece.
Thank you.
So is there any finish on it at this point?
Nope, nothing yet. Nothing yet.
What do you plan to do?
I'll do seal cell.
How deep are those grooves?
They're all, well, the first one is, can you go to the other photo? I'm trying to remember. It's a full, almost a full round, and it sits just tiny bit proud. So the first one is 10 mil deep. Second one's about 8 mil deep.
Looks like nested bowls. Beautiful.
Thanks.
Very nice. Well, that must have been one dusty mess.
Oh yeah.
Nice job, Bruno.
Thank you.
No, and the profile's also really nice. That smooth curve down the outside into the base. That one continuous flow there. That's also very nice. A lot of times you see a step in there.
Well, thanks.
All right.
I agree with Stephen. That's a beautiful OG.
So this is a photo I submitted, and I did not turn those vessels in the middle, but I wish I had. I like them very much. I like that they're distorted. I like the color. And I also like the photography, which doesn't fully come out, but it just looks awfully warm and nice. But the reason why I show this is I want to make similar vessels, and I've never turned beads. And I saw these beads and I like them, including the ones that are distorted. So I'm showing here 4 beading tools that I have. And I just wanted to hear people's thoughts. If you turn wet or if you turn dry, which one is preferred? Just teach me a little about beading. And I was also wondering, why are they different? There are 2 different ways to bead, the 2 on the left and the 2 on the right. And I don't quite yet understand why the producers make these 2 different ones.
Any beading experts out there?
Well, they're all basically scrapers. The 2 on the right I haven't tried, but if I had the money, I would get them. The nice thing about their design is I believe they're fluted, and the 2 points hang out really far, so they help you get the beads started. And these tools are meant to be mainly drug if they're a scraper, and you just do a little bit wiggle left and right to complete the round. That's been my experience. I don't know if anybody else wants to go into more detail.
Yeah, the ones on the right.
I have the Sorby beading tools, and as with a lot of Sorby tools, they don't come with any directions. So when I first used them, I was trying to get them to work, and then I realized, as Norm said, you have to rock the tool from side to side. Also, when you're making the entry of the bead.
Not a lot. You get into trouble if you do it a lot.
Yeah, just a little bit. I guess otherwise you can get a catch if you're too aggressive with the rocking.
My question is, they look concave like gouges. The 2 on the right, are they concave like gouges? Mine are flat.
Wait, this is the whole science. The 2 on the right are D-Way tools, and they're gorgeous tools. You use them upside down. The 2 on the left are Sorby kind of, usually those are high carbon steel tools, and they have to be sharpened super sharp with no burr on the top. You you sharpen them like a scraper and then knock the burr off because they're too aggressive, especially on side grain. The
And you
two on the right, you
hold them low.
hold them real low and you just touch. I don't know if there's a website on there. You almost have to see that done, but you just touch the top of the flutes. Like I say, they're upside down. This isn't a gouge, they're upside down. You touch the top of the flutes at a real low angle. I mean, you're almost pointing straight into the wood, and you kind of rock your hand back and forth. And oh God, it's hard to explain.
Until you see the curvature of the bead, no flat spot on the top.
Yeah, you can't go too far. Rita's really good at it. You kind of rock the tool. And in fact, if you're going to do three, or if you're going to do a series of them, you just touch it and start cutting, and then go to the next bead and start cutting that. Because if you cut a whole bead and then try to put that tool back into that groove, you're not going to hit it right. So you go and lay out your whole pattern first, just cutting it, and then go back and start at the first one and rock the tool back and forth. Don't put a handle on it so you can get a good feel. Rock the tool back and forth. And soon as you see the top of the bead touch the wood, get off of it, because otherwise you'll tear the bead up. It's a whole science. Do a couple scrap ones, you'll see, but you got to use these upside down. The two on the right are used upside down. The other two have to be super sharp, and they don't work when they're super sharp either.
So it sounds like we should have, once we meet in person again, maybe a little demonstration on how to do that from Jim and Rita.
Be glad to. Sure.
Stefan and Jim, I have a couple of the D-Way beading tools. And if you go out on the web, you can actually see some
I put a link in the chat.
of using those.
There are videos on YouTube.
Right.
And then question, how do you at the end sand them? You have to be very careful, otherwise you lose the roundishness of the bead, particularly the little ones must be difficult, no?
You don't sand them. You don't sand them.
Oh.
They're pretty good.
Uh-huh. And is it as easy when they're wet and as when they're dry?
Oh, I don't think you can do it on wet wood. I don't think you can do it on wet wood. I think it's got to be dry wood.
Well, it seems like these people did that on wet wood because it distorted.
Well, right. They could have done it with a gouge rather than
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've made my own that are similar to the D-Way, the ones on the right. I just used old gouges, and I don't think they would work on wet wood. It's gonna be too rough a cut.
Got it.
That web page also has at the bottom of that page is 2 videos, and it shows how the tool approaches the workpiece.
And also Harvey Meyer from Atlanta does his excellent basket illusions, and those are all done with the D-Way tools. And I think he has a good explanation on his site also. He's a master of doing those beads.
And the D-Way is the one on the right or on the left?
Right.
On the right.
Got
The
it.
guys that turn these pots, a lot of times those are turned in foreign countries or something. You know, they use sharp screwdrivers, and that's I'd like to say they had something fancy, but I'll tell you, they can do it with. It's unreal what they use.
Those aren't Richard Raffin pieces, are they?
I don't know. Somebody sent it to me from Pinterest, and I just liked them. I don't know who made them. What is that? Who is that maker that you mentioned, Norm, or the company?
Richard Raffin.
Oh, yes.
That did a lot of wet turn forms like that.
It may be.
All right. Sharpen those. Do you have a burr on the bottom?
The D-Way tools? The dewey
Yes.
tool is you only sharpen the flat side of it with a diamond hone. Just brush it lightly.
Yep.
But they last a long time.
Yep.
It's not an aggressive cut. It's you have to get a feel for it. There's no other. I can't explain it.
Yeah, and they excel in, as Jim said, they excel in making repetitive beads of the same size. Particularly, it's a great layout tool, even if you were to go back and finish your beads with a detail gouge or something, but just to get all that if you're doing multiple beads in a row, just take those points and go down your spindle. And I do it when I'm doing some of my pepper mills with Spectraply, and you just want them all consistent, and it's a great tool for doing that.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
And that is a very fancy bowl with a bow tie.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Stefan,
So this
is one of yours, right?
That's correct. And it's completely unfinished and not turned finished. But the reason why I have it on here, well, first of all, it's a red tip bush, or a relatively large grown bush. I had never heard of it, and it was cut down, so I salvaged it. And what I wanted to ask the team here is, on the upper side, I lost the bark, and I had not glued it on beforehand. It was fresh wood, and it fell off. And I was wondering what kind of solutions there are to fix that. The bark itself went into small pieces, so certainly I could get some bark from other pieces I have from this red tip and cut it into the right pattern and put it on there. That would be one solution. Another solution I thought about was to use a pyrography and just make it blackish, but I guess that might stand out too much. So I wanted to ask people how they would fix this.
When was the wood cut? Was it sap rising or in the fall?
It was cut about 4 weeks ago, so that would be August. Why do you ask that?
Usually the bark holds a lot better if the sap is rising. If you cut it in the spring, early summer, if you cut it in the fall, the bark is not as tight, so it will come off.
So Stefan, I think if you could find I've had some success with gluing bark on that. There's enough. It looks like there's enough variation in the texture and color of that bark that you could probably do something there. Just kind of take that diagonal there and just get another piece and cut it on an angle and try. I mean, I would try that first, and I would put CA around all the bark on there if you want it to stay on, because as that dries, probably the rest of that bark is going to come off.
Mm-hmm.
Red tip, if it is red tip moves a lot.
I see.
And there's a good chance that you'll just all that bark will eventually come off.
Yeah.
So
Is it worth CAing it first? Because that's what I do when I have a natural edge like that. I CA, flood it first and just below the bark also, so it has something to hold on to.
No,
Seems to work pretty well.
That would certainly help.
Yeah. Anybody for pyrography? Can one do that? Oh, I mean, of course one can.
Well, it's amazing what you can do, but you can patch this. If you're going to sell it and you want dollars per hour, skin it off and paint it black.
Yeah.
If you want to do pyrography and spend a week on it, do your thing. Probably patching the bark is as good as any. It's amazing what you can get away with, but depends what you're going to do with it and what you want to end up with.
The other thing with pyrography, I would not try to make it look like the bark.
Mm-hmm.
You need to make it look like it's some kind of contrast or something. I think it's very doable. Just don't focus on making it look like the bark, because that will look like you tried to actually reproduce the bark and failed.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
do
that occurred to me
something
too. But
contrasted.
what I just pictured was to do some pyrography around that piece of bark that's gone, and then make it like a waterfall or something. Continue that pattern down into the bowl, like it's artistic, and you wanted it to look that way.
Agreed.
Alan, you don't disappoint, never.
I like brainstorming, and I picture things in my mind, and yeah, like the guy who made that waterfall table. It looks like the epoxy is pouring from the table down to the legs and on the floor. It's just same kind of thing.
Awesome, thank
Get the
you.
blue ink, you know, and just yeah, okay, whatever.
All right, let's move on. We are running long here, so we're going to try to get through this. Okay, Ray?
This was a project that a friend of mine asked me to do for the Toastmasters group that he belongs to. And it's turning into a tale of wood swapping. The dogwood was came out of the PTWA group. A friend of one of the owners had these two dogwoods that had died a couple of years ago, and they were just standing there dead, and he dropped them, but he was looking for somebody else to come and cut them up and haul them away. So that became the heads. The walnut pieces are scrap from a friend of mine who's building using locally sourced black walnut to make cove molding. And these were cutoffs after that they were not able to use. And then he wanted to pay me for them, but he is a friend and he's a club member in another club I belong to with him. And so I didn't charge him. But when I went out there, I dropped it off at his house 2 days ago, and he's got a big wooded lot, and he's got an apple tree that he's taken down. So next Wednesday, I get an apple tree for the trade of the gavels.
Good swap.
I think so.
Yeah, those gavels are really, really beautiful, and I think any meeting should be well under control with that.
Well, thank you very much. They're about
say they're beautiful also.
10-inch handle, and they're about 3.5, and I think it's 2 1/4 around.
Yeah, those are nicely done.
Thank you. This was, while he didn't ask me specifically for this one, this is kind of like an auctioneer's gavel.
Right.
And this is, I think this is white oak. It's been hanging around, and I have trouble sometimes distinguishing between red oak and white oak. But it was just from the same piece. They separated it and turned it two, and that's friction. Both of them are finished with sanding sealer, and then one of the paste breakdown products, the sanding products, and then a final coat of friction polish, Mylan's friction polish. So the cracks were there before, and I just left them, and kind of happy with the piece. So I gave both of them to him the other day.
That's nice.
Very nice.
Even the experts have a very bad time telling red oak from white oak. So, you know, the fact that we can't look at it and tell one from the other is to be expected.
Okay.
Those cracks add a little personality to it also.
Yeah, well, I'm following this wabi-sabi or whatever they call it, you know, where you embrace the imperfections.
Right. All right, Lamb.
All right. I sent too many pictures to Norm, so I'm going to have to jump around a little bit. I've made a lot of rings. These are very inexpensive rings. They're made out of veneer. And what we've done, as you can see, there's multiple different types of inlays in there. So rather than just the plain wooden ring, some of them have metal banding inside of it. Some of it has calcite stone inside of it, and others have this plain simple glitter from Dollar Tree. And the simplest way to make them, go to the next slide. Those are my jigs. Once you get them rounded, on the left are the 2 jigs I use, so you can see they're set for different size rings. And on the right is just veneer strips, and you roll them up. And for sizing your rings, just use plain old sockets. All you gotta do is wrap around them, tape them off the socket, and then CA glue them. And it just wicks right through between the layers of veneer. So it works out really well. But I've made hundreds and hundreds of these, and they do get a little boring. So go to the next slide. And you can see I decided I wanted to make some that had a metal center. And I'm not willing to pay $10 for those ring blanks. So I started using copper. I just get copper band or a copper tube and cut it into ring blanks. And the tools there, of course, you can see the ring size and equipment. And the blue lever action thing, that's a ring stretcher. And so you can take, I use 2 sizes of pipe, and it allows me to stretch. I can make size rings from size 6 all the way up to 13, probably more, but 13's as far as I've tried to go. For these, let's see, for a finish, the little bottle there is a UV resin. And the little box there immediately beside of it is nothing but a black light that's used for fingernails, which makes the resin harden in about 3 minutes. So it works real well for the rings. Go back to the 2 slides, because yeah, there you go. This is where I've taken on the bottom part of it. You can see the 2 pieces of copper tubing with the rings on them. And the pieces of wood laying there are actually glued up veneer, and then clamp, let dry, and then use a hand planer to shave it off. And that's what those shavings are. If you'll zoom in to one of the shavings, if you could. Sorry to be so much trouble. Yeah, there you go. You can see I just took the hand planer and shaved it off, and then you wrap it around several times on the outside of the ring and with CA glue, and then you can sand it smooth. And it makes a very attractive ring. And it doesn't take long. And surprisingly, you can sell them at an inexpensive level too. So we sell them at the fair, Cabarrus County Fair, in one of the other clubs I'm in. So, you know, it's got to be quick to make and easy and simple and things like that. So I just thought I would share the rings.
That's very interesting. So you don't have any trouble with copper discoloring the skin? I mean, a lot of people don't want to wear copper jewelry because do you put a finish on it so it doesn't?
That's why I use the UV resin. I'm a person whose skin is very toxic to metals. My skin will eat anything, including gold and platinum and things like that. So I made my wife and I a matching set of wedding rings, and we've been wearing them for 6 months now. And so far, it hasn't eaten through that finish down to the metal yet. So,
good.
You know, just keep trying. That's what I'm experimenting with.
All right.
And copper is magic for any disease or anything.
Well, I hadn't tried to sell them like that, but that is a real good idea.
That's very interesting, Lane. Thanks for sharing that.
Very
Add some
pretty
CBD
too.
oil to them and you'll be done.
What's that?
Is again, Norm?
Fill them with some CBD oil and copper. It's the cure-all.
Got to incorporate everything.
Or have 2 product lines, one with the sealer on the copper side and one without.
There you go.
All right, last but not least, we got Jim Duxbury. Tell us about this.
Wow. Let me get unmuted here.
All right.
Wow is what I said too.
Huh? You can tell I got a lot of time. I redid the Ringmaster and I made it fit the Powermatic lathe. And it's a totally different machine now. It really works. But anyway, this is 3 layers of wood, cherry, maple, and purple heart. Probably 10 by 10 by 3/8 thick each one, glued together, and then cut corner to corner on the bandsaw the long ways, and then the wedge taken and put on the other side and glued together, so it gives you stripes through the wood. And then that's cut on the Ringmaster and glued together. It's kind of funny to see it on the lathe because it's like a big screw going around. It's real. I wish I could send you a video. It's almost mesmerizing.
Wow.
Anyway.
I can't even envision how you did that, but it looks like you just made a mistake and you got it off center.
Well, only it's on purpose.
Yeah.
Sort of. It's 10 by 10 by, say, an inch. When you glue all these 3 pieces up, you got a piece 10 by 10 by 1.25 inches thick, say.
Right.
Then you cut on the 1.25 inch side, you cut right through the whole 10-inch.
Oh, okay.
Corner to corner.
It's standing up on the it's standing up
on the bandsaw.
Got it. Okay. All right.
Then you take one piece from one side and put it on the other piece on the other side and glue it back together.
Right. Got it.
All stripes through it.
Yeah.
When you make your first cut on the bandsaw, you're cutting it at an angle?
No.
No?
Everything's flat. Everything's flat on this.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
So there's 3 flat pieces of wood: cherry, maple, and purple heart, and they're all 3/8 of an inch thick, 10 by 10. You glue them all together in a stack. So you've got 9/8. You've got 1 1/8 by 10 by 10. You stand that on end on the bandsaw and cut from corner to corner.
Okay. Okay.
You got 2 wedges. You reverse the wedges and glue them back together. And then you got stripes through the whole thing.
Okay.
Video.
So cut diagonally on the bandsaw?
Yeah, let's cut diagonally on the bandsaw. So you end up with 2 10 by 10 pieces. One is 1 1/8 on one end. They're both 1 1/8 on one side and 0 on the other side. Okay.
And then it's the surface side glued together.
Yeah. That's very ingenious, Jim.
Anyway.
I got to do that.
Some things you haven't got a real good idea what they're going to turn out. So this is about a 4 by 4 piece of all glued up strips and pieces, 8 inches long, and then cut quarter inch sections off of it and glue them back together, indexing them so that they're indexed like 3/8 of an inch. Each one is indexed about 3/8 of an inch when you put it back together. So it makes like a big screw. And then you put it back on the lathe and turn it.
This pandemic's been hard on you, hasn't it, Jim?
Yeah, Jim, how much LSD do you do?
Well, you wouldn't want to make these for a living, okay? But sometimes things turn out and sometimes they don't. This didn't turn out the way it was supposed to, but anyway,
I think it turned out great. It may not be what you envisioned, but boy, that's
yeah, it's something else. So.
Yeah, no,
I wish my projects that didn't turn out like that.
Well, when they don't turn out, at least you learned what you shouldn't do and maybe what you should do. So I have other ideas from this, but I have too many ideas. Never mind.
Yeah, take that to a craft fair and have somebody come up to you and say, "Oh, I've seen one of those before."
Yeah.
Just shoot them at that point.
Yeah.
That's really that's
It's not really that hard. You
right.
take a stack of all the scrap you got and glue it all together, make a 4x4, 8 inches long, and cut it nice, and you don't have to cut it nice and square. Cut it off 1/4-inch pieces and kind of keep track of them. You got to know which side is which, but then you start gluing them together and stacking them, and just when you stack them, twist them. Each time you glue one, keep twisting it, and then turn the whole thing on the lathe.
Yeah.
And if you screw it up, who's going to know? It isn't going to happen.
Well, yeah, that the seventh one from the left appears to be just about 1/8 of an inch off from the. Never mind.
It might not even be the right one.
It definitely.
Well, I originally was going to say video, but now, do you teach classes in how to do this? That's beautiful.
Wear a mask. Someday I'll do some. Right now, I do some videos, but in fact, I'm doing the Mountain Wood Turners. I'm going to be in Asheville Saturday doing a shark tooth bowl. They have all the camera equipment, and I have to learn camera equipment. I guess I'm going to have to learn it, but
yeah,
I spend too much time doing this. I don't have time to mess with cameras.
I know. I feel the same way.
Anyway.
All right. Well, thank you, Jim. That was a good way to end it. Well, that's it, folks. It's the end of it. Our next meeting is October 8th. And I really urge you to the photography. I mean, John is really an expert on the photography. If you've seen some of his work in our previous galleries, show and tells, his photographs are exceptional. And Ted and I have both seen the presentation. It's very, very good. So whether you're doing your own photography now or not, with that, unless anybody has any last comments, we will adjourn and we will see you all in a few weeks.